Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fandom Forum, episode 8 of season 1 of our series. Today, we have a wonderful group of fans who are here to talk all about dark fantasy author Andy Peloquin, and more specifically, his Hero of Darkness series. Though we will touch upon the Heirs of Destiny and the Queen of Thieves series as well, as Andy may or may not want you to know they are kind of intertwined and have some significance for one another. And we'll get into all of that. We'll talk about what the Hero of Darkness series is and what it's all about. You'll get plenty of great insight from the folks I have here right now. Let's first meet them, and then we'll talk about Hero of Darkness.
Well, thank you very much, Joe, for having me on the air. My name is Stevie Collier, and I'm the author of the Dark Assassin series. And I have a new series coming out in May about dinosaurs and magical swords. So, yeah, and I got into writing because of Andy when I read his, I think it was, what was it? The Dark Blade Assassin was what it was called before what he's named it now. So, yeah, I'm glad to be here.
I'm Angel Haze. I'm an epic fantasy author. Everything's not out yet. It'll be out later this fall.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and I also am an author, but mostly a reader at this point. I first met Andy right after his first book was published, when he was walking around with a t-shirt that said, "Ask me about the hunters," so I did. And I've been hooked on his books ever since.
My name is Michael Evan. I am a former writer, reviewer, interviewer for some blogs, some more notable fantasy blogs of names I'm not going to mention, and the current founder of Fantasy Focus, which is a group, a fairly well-used Facebook group, as well as a blog and a new podcast.
I wanted to start by introducing the main character, who is the Hunter. And for those who have never met the Hunter, how would you guys describe him?
He's the last person you would expect to be a hero, but he's more heroic than anybody else in the story. He's an assassin and basically forced to kill. So very, very interesting character. Very unique in that way.
I would say the Hunter is someone that when you walk past them, you know that there is this incredible power behind him. And I would say you'll feel it. That's how powerful this guy is. And when you're reading it, you feel confident that this guy can do whatever he wants to get done. So if you're on his list of getting killed, you don't have very long.
I see him as a bit of a cross between Batman, the Punisher, and even maybe a little bit of Robin Hood. He's definitely a dark guy. He has a really twisted past, much of which he doesn't remember.
Yeah, he's half demon, half man, driven to kill by the whispers of the dagger. And the only way he can get rid of those whispers and that need is to kill, and he just kills whoever deserves to be killed.
So the soul hunger is his magical dagger, correct?
Yeah.
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 So
it is psychically linked to him, so he has to do whatever it tells him to do. That's what forces him to kill. He really doesn't want to, so he compromises by killing those that he thinks deserve it. Mm-hmm. And when he kills someone who doesn't deserve it, the guilt just about kills him. So.
And he really is a protector. He has people that he looks out to, the vagrants in Veramis. He kind of looks out for them, and he has made a lot of money from these sort of high-profile contracts that he's been getting. And part of what he's been doing is using it to kind of keep safe houses for these people that don't have anything, the beggars of society.
What is it about the way he writes that draws you in and captures you?
He uses a lot of inner monologuing to take you into the mind frame of the central character. So I really enjoy getting to know the character through what he's feeling and what he's thinking. I also think he writes fantastic action scenes and some really brutal There's some really brutal, grimdark moments in Dark Blade Assassin that really stay.
Yeah, Andy really throws us into the action
Right
instantly.
away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right away. And I don't, if you're watching this for the first time and you've never read anything by Andy, expect top quality, top tier writing with some of the greats. He's amazing at prose. Andy, I consider him like a writing mentor, and I handle a lot of. I do the business side, and he is the one that helps me, with my craft. So every week we'll get on usually, and we'll talk craft, and then I'll ask him certain questions that if you're new to writing, you won't even know to ask. It's just he's a natural at it. He's a natural storyteller.
Andy's got really I can't even really call him an author. He is so beyond that. He is more of a wordsmith. He takes words and builds a whole world with them.
It's just huge. It's absolutely phenomenal of how good a writer he is.
He talks that way too. He's just amazing.
Yeah, he does.
He's got a vocabulary that is unbelievable, and he's multilingual. So that's even more impressive.
So there's a lot in the writing, and it's not, he isn't an overly complex writer, but he has a phenomenal prose that really kind of keeps you turning pages. And even though they're long books, I find myself always wanting to know what's going to happen next, because he keeps you interested with some really amazing plot twists and devices that just make you go, holy crap, that's amazing.
What's the most impressive aspect of his world building that you think is just wow? I can't believe that's,
aside from the magnitude of the the number of books that he's actually written, and the scope that he has looking forward, because I've gotten a chance to talk to him about some of the ideas that he's thinking about going forward as well. It's just how well plotted out everything is. It's the fact that everything kind of ties in, and the fact that he'll use Easter eggs to bring other characters from other books into the series.
The cities feel so real, because that there's the section there where the wealthy people hang out, and there's the section where you wouldn't want to be caught dead in, and the dangerous sections, and the poor people live here, and the homeless, and he's got all of that. Plus he's got the religious history really well done, and it comes through in how the people act and react to each other. And it actually is pretty a big part of the world.
I was going to say religion as well. Andy is, being in a cult that he was in, and he really brings interesting aspects into his religion. It's if you read one of Andy's books, you will quickly start believing that this world is not only real, but it actually works. And another thing Andy's really good at is hierarchies. He's very good at building hierarchies, and you really get feeling. So when I'm in Veramis, I feel dirty. I feel I have to watch my back, and that poverty is horrible. I smell the streets. That's how good of a world builder Andy is, and it's actually one of our biggest differences in our writing. You'll notice that Andy's writing is very much like his personality, and mine is very much like my personality. His is very structured. He knows the world before he goes into it. He does all this research. I do none of that. My world is brand new to me every day. And it does make me want to start plotting more, just because I'm so impressed by Andy's world building.
Like you read, and like a lot of authors, they'll put out a bunch of things, and it's hard to follow sometimes. It's because it's just too much at once. But the way he does it, it's just so put out, and just, it's just so vivid. He's got the dagger, he's got the bloody hand, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember teaching him how to do all that, so it took him a while, but he got there.
Yeah, the bloody hand, the hierarchy of that is really fascinating. It's kind of like an occult mafia. It's so well done, and it's just so pervasive in the society. You never know who's going to be in it or not, because it is so secret, and the hunter manages to track him down, which is just really fascinating too.
So who is some of your favorite ancillary characters besides the hunter that you gravitated towards?
He keeps killing them all off.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
As soon as I like a character, even if it's one of the evil characters, they get killed. So it's kind of hard to feel for any of them. But they do
I
all
thought
feel
Barton was
real.
pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's that half-mad
And he killed them
vagrant.
off.
You're not supposed to.
Actually,
That I will never forgive him for. That character should have survived.
Well, I actually asked Andy after I read the book, after I finished the book, if Graham was going to be in any of the other books, because I thought that he was he added a little bit of, there was some comic relief in the scenes that the hunter was in with Graham, where it almost felt a little bit like, like in relating it to like comic books, it could have been almost like not the Alfred to the Batman, but kind of like the character that hooks him up with stuff that he had, that kind of the only person that really knows him, where he's able to break free from the disguises that he uses and the darkness of the overall tone, and kind of just be himself. And you realize in his interactions with Graham that he actually has a kind of a quirky side to his personality as well.
I knew I fell in love with the Hero of Darkness book 1 whenever he meets the little girl, and you realize that he's had this relationship with this little girl for a long time, and it's one that's very positive. It's like, to me, it was like a father-daughter relationship, and this is what this created sympathy within me. This is the saving the cat moment where I became connected to the protagonist. And Andy, it's just, the way he does it is so beautiful. And Andy is really kind of like a poet as a fantasy author. If you read his work, it looks like every sentence was beautifully crafted with much intent. And so my favorite character besides the hunter would have to be that little girl who's selling the flowers.
Yeah, Frida.
Yeah,
I think.
he rescued her as an infant and made sure and followed her and made sure that she was okay all the time, but secretly and in the background. And that's one of the things that shows you that this assassin who is half demon is the good guy. He's really got a soul himself, even though he thinks he doesn't.
Podium Publishing presents Dark Blade Assassin, Hero of Darkness, Book 1, written by Andy Peloquin, performed by Mark Vitor.
A man often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. Jean de La Fontaine. Eyes the color of night watched Lord de Muria plunge to the forest floor. The wind seemed to hold the nobleman suspended in the air for a moment before slowly releasing him to the grasping clutches of gravity. The hard, dark face of the hunter showed no sign of pity as the body landed with a loud thud at his feet. It is no more than he deserves, he thought. He felt no remorse as he watched the broken man fight for his last pitiful, agonizing breaths. Not given to mercy, the fear in Lord de Muria's eyes meant nothing. Soot and mud stained the nobleman's robes, and crimson contrasted sharply with the white blonde of his hair. 3 broad-headed crossbow bolts protruded from the nobleman's chest and stomach. De Muria struggled to speak, made difficult by the quarrel puncturing his lungs. The hunter bent close to hear the whispered words. "Do it, you bastard." Lord de Muria's eyes closed as he awaited the inevitable.
I love the way that it starts out with him killing somebody that he has been tracking out through the wilderness, where he's uncomfortable because he's a city guy and he's got no memory of anything before he came to the city. So it was kind of interesting to see him out of his comfort zone, but still tracking this guy and doing what he needs to do.
What mainstream or known stories would you say that you would compare these to, that for those of us who have never heard of it or read it before might relate to if we knew of that mainstream story?
I would say Richard Knack's some of his books, like some of the Warcraft books, like Illidan and Arthas from Warcraft, the whole anti-hero thing. that would be Peter Brett, the Demon Cycle series, Brandon Sanderson. Like, he is way up at that caliber.
I'd say that the world building is on a par with or even surpasses the Lord of the Rings, because it is so detailed and intricate, and there's so much history behind it that Andy knows and can tell you about if you ask him, that he has put into his story. So it's that detailed, although it's not nearly as sweet and pretty as the Lord of the Rings is. It's dark and dirty. It's the dark and dirty side of the world.
I would say if you like the Dark Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks, you should definitely check out Andy Peloquin. And I think you actually might even prefer it because, Andy should definitely be in Barnes & Noble. So,
yeah. Dark Angel's another one. That's he's a little bit better than that. As much as big and popular as the Dark Angel series is, I think Andy's books are better.
What does it mean to you to have Andy so accessible? Is that something that draws you further into his world? Is it something that really resonates with you? I mean, his status of being indie, he wasn't so indie before, and now he's kind of gone that route a lot more. And so has that really resonated with you? Is that something that you really cherish?
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's always cool, as somebody that, that started out as a fan of a lot of indie authors and has sort of gone on to do kind of bigger work with them. The authors that I'm able to reach out to and say, hey man, I love this, and then actually get a response and then start talking about the work, and then start, even being able to say it would be really cool if you tried this, and have the author welcome your opinion. It's really, really cool. It always makes me want to be more supportive of an author that takes the time to actually answer readers' questions and treat the reader like, they're integral in, shaping their career and their bread and butter, so to speak. You know what I mean? And I get that a lot from Andy.
Well, I met Andy before I started reading. Like I said, he was wearing a T-shirt that says, "Ask me about the hunter." And so he was very approachable, even though he's like 1.5 feet taller than I am. And I got a stiff neck from talking to him.
Yeah, right. That'll happen.
Yeah. I can send him a text message anytime and he'll respond immediately. Even in the middle of the night. I don't know if his wife is happy about that, but still. Yeah, he's a great guy. Really a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I met Andy because I saw his book on Goodreads and was like, wow, because I'd already written the Fortier, and I was like, man, this book really reminds me of my anti-hero assassin. And so I emailed him, and Andy got back with me within an hour because I asked for some advice, and he wrote me half a book of tips and tricks to become a writer. And then I just kept emailing him back and forth, telling him, because I really, really enjoyed the Hero of Darkness book 1. And then I was like, you know what, do you want to partner up and do a show? And so that's how the Fantasy Fiends podcast became a thing. And I think it was only like 6 emails into our friendship, and we were already creating this podcast together, because I just feel like we really connected, and he's like my boyfriend now. I mean, we're in love. No, he's my man crush.
Yeah, that's exactly it. He manages to make everybody feel like they're his best friend.
Mm-hmm.
He's just one of those outgoing, wonderful people that just pulls you in, and his books are the same way. You just start reading them and you get pulled into that world. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, I met him in a Facebook fantasy group, and with him and JT Williams, they go back and forth with who's the better assassin.
Yeah.
And that's how I met him. And then he mentioned that he wrote Anti-Heroes and Assassins, and I didn't need to hear any more. I read it right away, and it's like, oh, this is phenomenal.
He's always really accessible and really cool to talk to. So, and he's great with interviews too. Like, if I send him an interview, he takes it really seriously, and he really thinks the answers through, and he'll come up with answers that are not the standard thing where it's like, oh God, I have to do another interview. Like he actually really thinks about it and gives it his all to make it something really that people would want to read.
What are some of our favorite non-spoiler scenes that you guys can talk about?
It's towards the end of the book, the first book, but it's not going to be that much of a spoiler. He finds somebody that he cared for had been murdered to get back at him, and the hunter just goes off the deep end. It really makes you you like the character all along anyway, because you know that he cares about these people, but seeing how much it hurts him to see someone that he cares about and has been taking care of and feeding and providing medication for and stuff, to see that, how he reacts to that, that's got to be one of the scenes that really made me like, I've got to read the next book.
There's so many. Definitely the final battle between the hunter and the main antagonist of the story. And I'm not going to, again, mention any names because that would be a spoiler. There's a lot of things that happen in the series, in the book, and I'm talking about Dark Blade Assassin, obviously. There are many things that happen. The book in itself is a journey. There's a lot of torture. There's a lot of the hunter being caught, then released, then redemption, and then finally thinking things are looking up, and then major things happening to bring everything back down to where it started. But definitely, I would say the final act of the book is phenomenal, and it just really showcases all the different strengths that Andy has as a writer in terms of writing gripping sort of cinematic battle scenes, emotionally resonant character moments that you just are like, wow, like you're shaking from them. And then also plot twists, like things that you would never ever see coming.
I have actually two scenes that I really liked. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I was in martial arts for 12 years. And there's a scene in the very beginning. I was like, man, this guy does his research, or he's already been a martial artist, because he was going through and describing it very well in words, which is extremely hard to do. These sword forms. I was like, wow, these are actual things that people do in Kung Fu. And so that was one of my favorite parts. When you're reading it, he's not making this stuff up. These are actually researched battle tactics and movements. But it did turn out that Andy has done martial arts before, and quite a lot of it. And the next scene is when the hunter is tied up, or he's got chains around his arms, and they're beating the crap out of him. And that's one of my favorite. And how he figures out a way to escape that was freaking amazing. Because I remember I was on break from work. This was before I was an author, reading. I was like, oh my God, how's he going to get out of this?
That was a very intense scene. Very intense.
Yeah, it's hard to pick a favorite scene. Like, there's so many fight scenes and that's what I like the most. It's like the entire book. It's just fight scene after fight scene, and it's just so well done. And I asked him when I first asked him, like, if it's assassins and it's antiheroes, I'm like, just tell me there's no romance and we're good. It's because it's just
What's
so
wrong
full
with
of
romance.
I don't like it.
That's how babies are born.
I don't need to read about mush. I like the epic battles and the action, and it's just non-stop action with him. And it's just the way he writes it. It's just so beautifully written and wonderfully dark. It's just, it just ignites that fire, and it just in the darkness inside you, it's like, oh.
How about enemies? How well written are the enemies? And do you feel like yes, he killed them, or is there certain times when you're very satisfied because of the way that he portrays the enemies?
Yeah, especially the bloody hand. Like I said, it's kind of an occult mafia, so they're in everything. They control everything, and you can see some of the evil stuff that they do. The human trafficking and getting these young girls and forcing them into prostitution and blackmail and all this stuff that they do. And you really want them to get it in the end, because they're so vicious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
if there's anything Andy does the best, that's villains. He was
Yeah,
on a
absolutely.
panel. He actually just did a panel at a book fair that we were together. That's where I met Kelly. Kelly, what was that? Indie Scribe. He did the villain panel. So he just, if there's anything he spends most time on, it's his villains. They're extremely well crafted, and they start making sense, which is scary when you actually start understanding why the villains are doing what they're doing. And Andy does an amazing job of that.
Yeah, he knows his psychology.
Yeah.
What
and
makes him
Andy's
tick.
done a lot of research on psychology.
Yeah.
And Andy's helped me a ton with my villains, a ton, because he's just so good at it.
Is there one little thing you can pinpoint, Stevie, that you really think is just like over the top? That's amazing.
For Andy, it's his way of making the reader sympathize with the villain, which to me makes any villain amazing. And that's what he taught me, that if we create villains that the reader sympathizes with, that villain has been well crafted. Right?
Every word counts, so you can't really read through Andy's books fast because he does things so intensely. Just 2 lines of dialogue can set up the entire character's life, and you really need to just read through it slowly. And I made the mistake of trying to read the first book really quickly, and after about 4 chapters, I said, no, I can't do this. And I just slowed down a lot. And it takes me a long time to read books like that, where every word is intense and counts.
I thought that the main antagonist of the story, who, and I don't even really know what to call him, and I don't really want to call him anything because I think it'll give away some major plot points in the story. But I thought the way he wrote the antagonist or the main villain of the story was absolutely fantastic, and probably I would say he was one of the best villains that I've actually read about in fantasy literature. For lack of spoilers' sake, I don't want to give away too much, but when people read the book, they'll know why I say this, and they'll understand when they get to the end how brilliantly he put this whole thing together. And I had asked him also if like other books in the series had similar elements to this, because it was just something that really stood out that like I wasn't able to stop thinking about for like hours after I finished the book.
Just really deep, and like every villain is like a hero in their own mind, right? So he creates them, and so
if you could ask Andy to write a story for a character that has been on the fringes of his world, that he hasn't concentrated on, that hasn't been, the main character.
I think if I when I looked at that, when I saw that question, I was kind of happy that you were going to ask it. One of the characters, which he's actually, I think, written a novella about as part of the Heirs of Destiny series, that I really think is phenomenal, that I think deserves a lot more attention in future stories, would be Evren, who, to me, getting back to the whole comparison to comic book universe and the Bat family, I kind of saw him as the Nightwing to the Hunter's Batman. A little bit of like he's a little bit of a badass. He's got that tongue-in-cheek humor when he deals with people, and he's kind of an everyman hero that still has elements of the Hunter to his character because of his involvement with the Hunter. If he did an Evren series after Heirs, or decided to get more into developing that character, because I'm such a big Nightwing fan and a Dick Grayson fan in general, I can just to me, Evren's the Dick Grayson of that kind of family unit. So it would be really cool to see a dynamic of Evren interacting with the Hunter again, and also having his own sort of side missions.
I really want to know the history of Barden. There was so much, and most people just sort of brushed off Barden as being crazy, but there was so much history behind that character that was just hinted at, and the Hunter believed him and was the first one to believe him, I think. And so I really want to know, what is the history of that character? Kind of fit really well together, because the Hunter was always methodical and in control, and Barden couldn't even control his own mind. He'd been tortured and stuff had happened to him. So Yeah, they fit together nicely because one had what the other didn't.
Yeah. Well, especially at the time you met him too, right? When the hunter was so down, and then you met him, and first it's you brush him off, and he's kind of half mad and only has a few lucid moments, and even then it's just like, what?
Yeah.
But and then you start
My-
realizing things.
Yeah, you start realizing that even when sounds like he's mad, he knows what he's talking about.
How about for you, Angel? Is there one that you would ask Indy to write about?
Well, I would even go from the villain, because I always like reading from the villain's point of view, because I want to see what makes them tick, why they're doing what they are. Like, I see the hunter, and that is completely amazing, but I like seeing both sides too.
Yeah.
Because I like going dark and deep and into all that.
For me, it would probably be from another series that I've been reading, and that Heirs of Destiny.
Heirs of Destiny.
Heirs of Destiny, and that would be Kaylin, and it's a character that we see a quarter of the book because there's multiple characters in the series. But I would like to see Kaylin have his own series. Kaylin is the son of Iana.
Yeah.
I connected with him emotionally. So I would like to see one from that. And there's a small character, well, maybe not so small, Amroth, and he's like a big warrior in Andy's world, which, if you haven't read Heirs of Destiny, if you want to see some incredible world building, like maybe one of Andy's best, some of the best in the world, it's Heirs of Destiny. I mean, that book is insane, all the way down from religion, all the way down to currency.
The Heirs of Destiny, the Trial of Stone, that's where he does a YA adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And there you get like the female badasses and plus the males and everything. So it's from both point of views, and it's a total different feel, but it's like just as amazing. And his writing is, it's just awesome.
Very cool. Well, I can't say enough good things about the people here. They're very awesome, and I really appreciate them taking the time to talk about Andy here. And I will have them tell you where you can find them, and their links will be available as well in the description. But I want, this is your chance, Stevie, to tell everybody about your book. So go for it.
It's about time. It's about time. So I'm Stevie Collier. I was a dark fantasy writer, and you can grab 3 of my books on Amazon. That's the Dark Assassin series. People say it's a really weird read, and because I'm a really weird person, and it comes out in my writing. But what you really want to keep your eye out is my brand new series, The Bizarre Blades. And I really put a bunch of Stevie into that book. When you're reading it, you're reading Stevie, and I'm super excited because it is funny. And I guess the only thing negative would be the sprinkle of romance I have in there, Angel.
Oh.
Yeah, no. And you can go to Sprinkle's okay. And you can go to steviecollier.com if you want to check out my books, or just email me and say hi.
All right, Angel.
Okay, I'm Angel Haze, the epic fantasy author. My stuff won't be ready until later this fall, but I've got a short story, Beyond the Shadows, that's out on my website for free. I'm on Facebook a lot, and we have a Indie Fantasy Addicts group if you want to talk indies, because there's some really amazing talent on there. And Andy is also an admin, so you get to meet him too.
All right, Kelly.
I only have one book out. It's a collection of short stories that are mild horror, kind of like the thing that you would have teenagers tell around a campfire at summer camp. My website is not up and running right now, but you can always connect with me on Facebook and Play with Needles on Twitter.
Other than the fact that Andy's a regular on my group, Fantasy Focus, so there's lots of stuff. If you're interested in finding more out about Andy, I've got a really big tell-all interview with him on my actual website, which is fantasy-focus.com. And there's also a lot of other authors we've interviewed and stuff, but this is a really sort of a big special interview where he talks a lot about stuff that he's got coming up in the future, and the series that he's working on right now, Silent Champions, and just a bunch of other things that people that are fans of his work might want to know.
The first time we were talking about our books in a podcast, I sold all of his books thinking that was my series, but mine's the Dark Assassin series. And we had people comment that they went and bought his books thinking they were mine. Ain't that some BS?
This question comes from Alexis Long. Question is, why do you write? Every time I get asked this question, a different answer comes out depending on the way I'm feeling, because writing is so much more than just an activity or a career for me. You know, I come from a very artistic family, and so I would always see my siblings drawing or playing music or painting or doing amazing things, and I was like, why can't I do any of that? I cannot draw to save my life. I have zero graphic design skills, so I've really got no art in that sense. But then I discovered writing, and I was like, oh my god, this is what I can do. And it's sort of like all the time that I had been looking for an art form, there was this pressure building up inside of me. And when I discovered writing, it was like the outlet to release it. And so writing, obviously, it's something that I love to do. It's something that makes me happy, you know, telling great stories or putting things down on paper, bringing characters to life. But it's this thing inside that I have to do because there's this innate need to create. So every time I sit down to write, it's like letting out this pressure building up that has built up inside me. And then with every new story, with every new character, it's stretching myself, pushing myself, discovering some new part of myself and the world around me through the stories I write. And that's why I just love it, because there's no end to the ways that I can be more creative and stretch my creativity more. So that's why I write.
That is our show. Thank you so much to everybody who contributed thoughts and interesting conversation about the Hero of Darkness series and Andy Peloquin and his writing. I hope that you all had enough information here. If you didn't know Andy before, if you hadn't heard of his series, to go check it out. All the links to all the books are available right now in the YouTube description box, so go check those out, and also check out all the people who participated here. All of their links are here as well. Some of them are prolific writers, some of them are bloggers, some of them are worth just hanging out and talking to this series about. These are the folks that if you get into this series and you become a fan, you're going to meet quite often. They are permeated into the fan base of Andy Peloquin, and rightfully so, and they wouldn't have it any other way. If you like this show, if you thought this was a great show, go check out the other episodes that we have available, and check out anything that YouTube is suggesting you watch from our channel, which will be coming up right after I'm all done at the end of our show. And don't forget to subscribe. That would be awesome. We would love to have you as part of our family and part of our team. So hit the subscribe button and become, a member of the GoIndieNow family and watch everything that we're doing. We have so many shows. We are programming so many different things every day, every week, every month. And I hope that you know that it's always time to go Indie Now. And with that, we'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.